I would have loved to stay in Canada. I love Canada. Canada will always be home for me. I've got family, I've got friends, and every single time I come back, it just feels right. But I moved south of the border because I'm a dreamer and I want to have a life, investments, and a lot more. And I can't do that in Canada in 2024 or 2025.
It all started after the Olympics in 2010. A lot of people started to show up in Vancouver in the following years.
But with the rapid transformation, the city needed to catch up. So things got a lot more expensive. The homeless populations in Victoria as well as Vancouver started to grow and the cities didn't know what to do with them. Fast forward to the pandemic. COVID hit.
Coronavirus, flattening the curve. Stay at home.
A lot of people lost their jobs.
The economic crisis as Christmas approaches. The rent subsidy revamped.
Finally, 8 months into the pandemic.
And mental health was a big issue, even for the most healthy.
There's nothing normal about this. Silence and emptiness where there's usually hustle and bustle. It's disconcerting. Social distancing is not what cities are designed for, and it's not what most humans are wired for.
During the pandemic, the cities decriminalized drug use in an attempt to curb overdoses. Safe injection sites started to pop up all over, and those sites offered people clean drugs instead of what was offered on the streets. As the years have gone by, tent cities started to pop up in populated areas, and the problems started to get worse. Downtown in both cities have started to get worse and worse over the years. Of course, the cities have tried to solve it with a Bandaid solution, but when you pull a piece of yarn, it tends to get longer and longer. In Victoria, they took over 2 hotels, which were in a decent area, and the problems started to arise from vandalism, fires, and those areas now, 4 years after the pandemic, haven't been able to fully recover. Now in 2024, this beautiful city of Victoria is starting to look like a ghost town downtown. Boarded up windows and a lot of businesses moving out of downtown because there's constant robberies, problems, and things in the news almost every day. And how a lot of these problems are solved is with a slap on the wrist, a catch and release, even for repeat offenders. And surprise, they don't show up to their court date.
When I think of tax dollars at work, I think of the mayor working for the people.
Lately, the city has been under fire because the mayor decided to open up a wraparound community center for the homeless. Traditionally, these have become shelters with drugs and a lot of the addicts out on the street. They're putting it in a residential area, and best of all, they didn't tell anybody that it was actually happening. They didn't hold a referendum, it just showed up in the news.
We just haven't been talked to about what the site even is. We don't know what's going to happen when the site's closed, after hours. We really don't know anything about this site.
Earlier this week, Victoria Mayor Marianne Alto announced the city is funding a new community space at 2155 Dowler Place. Because it's a real estate transaction, the city did not give the North Park community advance notice.
Also since 2020, housing prices, inflation, and tax rates have soared. The once idea of owning a house in your 20s or 30s is slowly starting to disappear. Owning a house is a collaborative thing. Having family or friends helping you out is really the only way to buy a house in Canada for someone just getting into the market. Literally, shacks in Toronto and Vancouver were going for well over $1 million. And with that, rental costs have followed. From what used to be $800 a month is now $2,000 to $2,500 a month. Food prices have also skyrocketed. Things are getting more and more expensive. A lot of my friends are grinding it out to literally stay where they grew up. It's actually really sad to see. There is a massive problem with the homeless population, drug use, and neither city has a mental health facility to help out. A lot of people have asked me why I left Canada. And when you work online, you can literally go anywhere. But I was getting such a high tax rate and not really taking in any of the benefits. For instance, when you would go to the hospital or see a specialist, you might be in a lineup for 4 to 6 months to see that specialist. I get it that taxes pay for a lot of things in the community. First responders, healthcare, the roads are beautiful, and even the bike lanes. But in downtown Victoria, there is a bike lane in almost every single street. Instead of having 2 lanes of traffic, they cut it down to a bike lane. These bike lanes aren't cheap. They've put them in almost every single street. The thing about Victoria and Vancouver is it rains for 8 months out of the year, sometimes 9 or 10 months out of the year. So how many people are actually cycling? To have a comfortable life here, you need to be making $100,000. $100,000 anywhere else, you would live like a king or a queen. And best of all, taxes eat up half of that.